Is Patrick Mahomes a GOAT?
I think he's played quarterback at a higher level than anybody's ever played it.
How many rings do you think Mahomes needs to be solidified as the GOAT? Does he need that 7 that Brady has?
I actually think this will be a big sports talking point in like 5 to 10 years. It is very similar to the LeBron Jordan conversation.
Is he like the unofficial king of Kansas City?
Yeah, I mean it's not even really close.
Welcome back to another episode of Caps Off by the Game Day. Today we got another special guest, writer at The Athletic and author of Kingdom Quarterback, a book on Patrick Mahomes and the history of Kansas City. Here to talk about the GOAT, we got Rustin Dodd on the pod. How's it going, man? Welcome on.
Guys, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. We're excited to talk to you and pick your brain a little bit about what it's like to cover a guy like Patrick Mahomes.
Dude, I got to tell you, I'm the biggest Patrick Mahomes fan here. And just in general, like out of anybody I know, partly because he's from Texas, I'm from Texas, so we take pride in our Texas quarterbacks and Texas players in general. But really, really cool, especially, I feel like we grow up as kids and big sports fans and stuff like that, and we're always reading books on like biographies, different players. That's really how we fall in love with the game. So it's really cool to that you're writing this book on Patrick Mahomes, and I love, we're gonna talk more about it, but it's just exciting to have you on.
Man. So
For sure.
I'm curious, Rustin, can you tell us a little bit about this book that you wrote and how you got into doing it? Give us a little synopsis.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the basic version is that I grew up in Kansas City. That's where I'm from. I worked at the Kansas City Star newspaper out of college for about close to a decade. And so I'd always kind of covered Kansas City sports, and I actually moved to New York City in 2018, sort of right as Patrick Mahomes was taking off. The year he threw 50 touchdown passes and won his first MVP. And so the basic version of the story is that like I felt like I was sort of missing this story back home, just this like generational quarterback that finally showed up in my hometown that had really never had a quarterback like this before. And also, this is true of a lot of places, but Kansas City is it's a small Midwestern city. It's changed a ton over the last like 25 years. It's the kind of city that like, frankly, doesn't really have its story told to a national audience that much. So my co-author, Mark Dent, and I, we also just kind of wanted to tell the story of Kansas City and sort of how it's changed, but then also sort of like how it's changing even more with Patrick Mahomes, because he is sort of like just a catalyst for a different kind of Kansas City. It's strange. I mean, like when I was growing up in the 90s, that was the era where the Chiefs basically always had like a backup quarterback from San Francisco. They had like Elvis Grbac. Yeah, they had this run. They had Elvis Grbac, Steve Bono, like all these guys. And then obviously they had Trent Green, who was another backup quarterback from the Rams, or at least, after Kurt Warner. So anyway, it was just the city could never find a quarterback. And so to stumble upon Patrick Mahomes, it was almost the complete opposite of what we had before. So yeah, the story kind of tells both those stories just sort of at once.
It's insane. You could have gone from, like you mentioned all those guys, you could have gone from that to like a pretty good, which I guess you did with Alex Smith, who was like a pretty good quarterback.
That's a good guy.
But to, like you said, have a guy like Patrick Mahomes stumble across the franchise. But I think it was a perfect storm because you have Andy Reid, who's just the quarterback whisperer, and he's able to do such great things with the right talent around him. So it's insane.
And you have a city like Kansas City that loves their football so much. So for them to get this superstar quarterback who's on a trajectory of the GOAT, it is exactly what you said, the perfect storm, right? I'm curious, Rustin, did you spend any time with Patrick Mahomes when you were writing this book? Did you get to meet him?
No, not Patrick specifically. We've spent a lot of time with his father, Pat Sr., spoke to his grandfather and some other, close friends from childhood, old coaches, teammates, all those stuff. We never did a one-on-one interview with Patrick, but we felt like we kind of got to understand sort of his inner circle a little bit. His trainer, Bobby Stroop, who was kind of featured prominently on the Netflix documentary. And that story is kind of told in the book as well. Just some of the kind of crazy training Patrick Mahomes does, because he's sort of like, he's this interesting character where he's like, he's a little bit like Steph Curry, where he's sort of, kind of changing the way the quarterback position is played and the way that like
Yeah.
Steph Curry changed, the way the game was played in the NBA. And if you look at Patrick's history, kind of both, like he played baseball, he played basketball, he played all these sports. He kind of uses all these skills in the quarterback position. And he also has this trainer, as I mentioned, like Bobby Stroop, who he's had basically since he was in the 4th grade. And it's like, if you watch him work out, he does all these exercises that look so strange. Like he like skips around, he like runs in circles, he like swings a bat. He, he does all this weird stuff. And it's like, if you watch it, you're like, what are these workouts? But it's like, if you actually watch him scramble around and like make an incredible play, you're like, oh, I get it. This is like these skills translate. So it's like the way he plays the position is almost just as fascinating as like how well he plays it.
Yeah, that definitely came through in the documentary, in the quarterback documentary. That was so sick.
And real quick, because you talk about also the history of Kansas City football. Like, were there any like cool people that you talked with about like Kansas City, like the old players, like such as like a Dwayne Bowe or Jamal Charles, even Tony Gonzalez, like somebody like that?
Yeah, I mean, we spent a lot of time, honestly, this goes way back, so it's not quite as interesting, but it's like the Chiefs had a pretty good team in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
So they played in 2 of the first 4 Super Bowls. So we talked to a lot of those guys, like Mike Garrett, Bobby Bell, like, Willie Lanier, like these like sort of legends, and sort of that era of the Chiefs. And it's like the Chiefs went to 2 of the first 4 Super Bowls. They were, like this sort of AFL power in the early days, and then they literally did not go back to another Super Bowl for 50 years. Yeah. And so on the one hand, it was like this team that like, it's whether it's like Cleveland or Pittsburgh or Buffalo, like these cities where it's like football matters so much in these places. And like, I would probably argue they matter maybe even more than like in like a New York or in LA or, in various places. And like the Chiefs just 50 years without, a Super Bowl appearance is, I mean, it was excruciating. So anyway, we did talk to like a bunch of, and some guys from the 90s, like Carl Peterson, who was kind of their famous GM in the 90s, kind of was like the architect of those teams. We talked to a lot of those guys too.
That's really cool.
It's sick. I know we were talking before the pod, Felipe was talking about how Patrick Mahomes is very comparable to like a Michael Jordan was to Chicago. What did you have to ask about that? You said something.
Yeah, so in that relation there, like, I'm assuming, to me, if I were to guess, a player who's had an impact on a city like Mahomes has in Kansas City, it's probably Michael Jordan, the closest thing to it. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, other players that are comparable, or if you think Patrick Mahomes blows anybody out the water in that sense.
No, I mean, Michael Jordan's interesting because it's like, so I'm 37, and so like when I was a little kid, like Michael Jordan was just taking off, like his first three-peat was like, I can barely remember those teams, but it was like, but to me, it's like Chicago was always the Bulls, like the Bulls dynasty, like that association for when I was a kid was just like so strong. So it's weird to think about like, in the 80s before Michael Jordan gets there, like what are the Chicago Bulls? Like they don't really have a brand. And so that's actually an interesting comparison. Like the one comparison that I think people have brought up is that if you actually like study this, LeBron James in Cleveland, he actually like brought economic impact. Like he actually brought like development and like economic financial gain to Cleveland, which is like incredibly rare. People have done studies like, like smart people at like Harvard and like Ivy League schools, they've like done studies on athletes in cities. And most of the time, like, even if, you're, like a Tom Brady or even like, the best players of their generation, like you're not actually showing like development and like financial gain in the city. Whereas like LeBron in Cleveland, there actually was sort of a correlation from like when he showed up. And I think Patrick Mahomes is like, crazy. I think Patrick Mahomes is like sort of similar, whereas like 10 or 15, 20 years from now, you'll be able to like draw a line and be like, certain things in Kansas City that, got done because of him. He's an investor in like pretty much all of the professional sports teams in the city now. He's an investor in the Royals. He's an investor in Sporting Kansas City, the MLS team, and him and his wife Brittany are investors in the NWSL team, the women's soccer team.
Yeah.
And they're actually like, I mean, they're building a stadium. It's like the first, women's professional soccer stadium in like American history. And so they're involved in that. And so like, there's like just little things like that where, like if he's for something in Kansas City, like it's gonna happen, so it'll be interesting. I mean, it's too early to tell exactly like what the impact will be, but it should be like significant over the next few decades, I would imagine.
Damn,
that's
man,
so cool, bro.
Sick. That is
like,
so cool, bro.
Is he like the official, or I guess the unofficial king of Kansas City? I feel like he has to be.
Patrick Mahomes must be the king of Kansas City.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's not even really close. We were just, interviewing people, for the book. I think like again, whenever I like talk about this stuff, it always sounds kind of like cheesy or like cliche.
Yeah.
But like in a place like Kansas City, the general vibe of the city, like it goes up and down with how the Chiefs are playing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the difference between like a place like Kansas City and like a New York is that like the conversation about sports is like so collective, right? So it's like day to day. It's not just the people who are into sports. It's not just like, like the sports media and sports fans who are like discussing this. It's like it's everybody. So it's like even if you live there and you don't really care, like you know who like the Chiefs offensive tackles are because like you just hear their names so much.
That's so funny.
And so like it means so much that I think that there's like the fact that Patrick Mahomes is like in Kansas City, it's actually changed like the outlook of how people feel about the actual city. Like people are just generally happier.
Yeah,
and it sounds weird, and it's like maybe it shouldn't be the case that like it matters this much, but like it does. And I think that like there's just like the Kansas City is the kind of place where everybody just sort of expects like things to go wrong, or like, it's like it is what it is. But like I think Patrick Mahomes has allowed everybody to kind of think like bigger. Like, if we have the best athlete in American sports who lives in our city, like why shouldn't we think of ourselves as like, being on the same level of, city X or city Y, or, choose the bigger city.
I will say the one time I went to Kansas City, it was phenomenal.
I'm
just
sure.
a fantastic
Me
time.
too.
It's
I was there twice this past year. I went to the AFC Championship game, and then we went to the draft. And when I was there with Jack at the AFC Championship game, like we were there obviously for a couple days before then, leading up to it, and the energy in the city was just like you could feel it. Like it was so electric. Like the Chiefs are making this run again, and like everyone knew they were gonna go win the Super Bowl. So like it's just like so cool how tangible that is in just like everyday life, that like sports can make this kind of impact on like a whole city.
It's insane.
It's amazing. Rustin, I'm curious. Obviously, your book is your book out yet, or is it coming out this week, right?
Yeah, Tuesday, so October 22nd.
Amazing.
So I don't know when this will be live, but yeah, on Tuesday.
Amazing. So your book is coming out this week. So I'm curious if you could give us and the listeners a little sneak peek. What's like your favorite moment or story that you put in this book that like you are excited for people to read about Patrick Mahomes or about the Chiefs or whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot, but one story is sort of just his origins in Texas, specifically East Texas, which is like, like East Texas is a very specific vibe. It's, it's different than Dallas or Houston or whatever. It's like, it's a little smaller. It's like a little bit different. And we sort of retraced the Mahomes family history, kind of going back like generations, and talked to his grandfather, and then did a little bit of like research on his grandfather's, grandfather, and like how the family ended up there. And then spent a lot of time with his dad, Pat Sr., and sort of told his story because, the short version is like his high school athletic career looks a lot like Patrick's, where it's like he was a 3-sport athlete. He could have played quarterback in college. He played baseball. He kind of chose to do that. And, Patrick Mahomes is fascinating because on the one hand, like he was a little bit undercovered in high school, right? So he played all these different sports. People thought he was going to play baseball. He only had one Power 5 offer to Texas Tech. And then, the story of the draft. I mean, he goes in the first round, but it's not like he was a slam dunk,
Right.
top 10 pick until the draft. But on the other hand, like if you talk to everybody that knew him when he was a kid, if you talk to his dad, like everybody just thought he was like going to be a professional athlete. It was just sort of like
Yeah.
kind of like a Venus to Serena Williams or like a Tiger Woods thing on a smaller scale. It was just like he was that good and like that, like that much of a prodigy and everything that like people didn't know what sport it was going to be, but they were just like, like this dude is going to be a professional athlete. And so like on the one hand, it's like kind of surprising that like he is as good as he is. And on the other hand, it's like, I think his mom was quoted a few years ago. Somebody asked him like, can you believe he threw 50 touchdown passes in his first year in the NFL? And she was like, well, yeah, I can believe it. Like he's done this in his entire life.
That's awesome.
So like it's that little weird combination of like he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder because I think people didn't quite believe in him, like at the beginning, but at the same time, it was like sort of preordained from childhood that this kid was going to be like amazing at something.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, being from Texas, you're right. Like, obviously, East Texas, just to give perspective, though, like East Texas, and a lot of these, if you're not in the metroplexes of like DFW or San Antonio, Austin, or Houston, nobody really knows who you are. So, like White House, Texas, nobody knew anything about that. And so, yeah, they don't get like the limelight. Like, for example, I was playing football. We always talk about this, but like Kyler Murray just being in Dallas, everybody knew who he was. But if Johnny Manziel didn't get the same type of hype as like a high school quarterback. But if he was in DFW, playing for a school in DFW, then he would have, or in Houston, around the Katy area. So it's crazy because like, yeah, you didn't hear about Patrick Mahomes. Only one Power 5 offer, plays in Texas Tech. And even at Texas Tech, he balled out. He had that famous game against like Baker and OU and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But his knock was always that, he played in this open offense with the Red Raiders that wouldn't translate to the NFL. And he was able to make it translate. So it's just, his story's like insane.
They're built different in Texas, man.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah. No, Felipe, I have like one very inside Texas football story for you from the book then. Because so like Todd Dodge, who's this sort of legendary high school coach from Texas, he was at South Lake Carroll. Yeah. That's like the school that produced Chase Daniel.
Right.
Like, this massive, very influential with like the spread. So one of the assistants from South Lake Carroll ends up at White House, where Patrick is. And so in the 8th grade, this assistant coach from the high school goes and finds a bunch of 8th graders and basically takes them out of class and takes them through like a quarterback boot camp to basically like teach them about the position. And that was like the first time that Patrick had ever really like, been really exposed to quarterback at like a high level. And so like basically it's the same like training program that, all of these high school quarterbacks from Texas like went through. So on the one hand, he's in East Texas, kind of like off to the side from like some of these like true football powerhouses. But on the other hand, it's like it's Texas high school football. And he was sort of like indoctrinated in that sort of tradition of just like all of these quarterbacks, whether it's, Matt Stafford or Chase Daniel or Drew Brees or Nick Foles or like, on down the list.
Damn, yeah, Texas football.
We got some talent, man.
For those who don't know, South Lake's always been a powerhouse. They still are. And a lot of guys that come from there, but that's really dope.
You've been saying Felipe always preaches they're different in Texas, and this is proving it to me right now.
They sound very different.
I'm curious, Rustin. What does a guy that is like compared to Patrick Mahomes, for example, like a Caleb Williams, basically need to do, whether it's preparation wise or otherwise, to kind of live up to that bar that is Patrick Mahomes? Do you like? You studied his workout regimen and kind of his preparations process. Like, what do guys like coming up into the league need to do to kind of live up to something? I think
for context too, like the comparison, we haven't really heard that many people be compared to Patrick Mahomes. Zach Wilson got like some weird comparisons a couple years ago. Obviously, that didn't live up. But now you have Caleb Williams, and there's more there, right? Like the size, the improvisation, the athleticism. So just for context.
Yeah, I mean, I think the two traits that with Patrick Mahomes that I think are really underrated from a quarterback perspective is that the dude is incredibly accurate. Like it's not just that he's got a big arm and that he can scramble and he's elusive and like make these plays. It's that like he's got the arm that is accurate from every angle. Like, right. So whether it's a little sidearm, a little bit over the top, like he's very accurate. And it's like, if you actually study his numbers, like we all see the plays where he runs around and makes plays, but he's an incredible pocket passer as well. Like he can do it from the pocket. He did it in the playoffs when his ankle was, banged up and he couldn't really, he couldn't really run around. And then the other thing too is like, he's he has just a photographic memory, and we write about this in the book, but like he recalls every single play he's ever done. Like his mind works on that, like sort of, I think Steph Curry, people have said the same thing about him, where he has like this photographic memory where it's like he sees everything visually in this way. And so like I don't know anything about Caleb Williams. But like those are the things. It's like he obviously has got the athletic tools. It would help if he went to a system that has a coach like Andy Reid. I mean, obviously that didn't hurt. So like the system is huge too. But like the accuracy and the mental aspect, like I think those are like the true separators, like with Mahomes, like from just a quarterback perspective.
And you talk, sorry, I was gonna say, you talk about like accurate quarterbacks, like Joe Burrow, for example, a very accurate quarterback, but like what makes Mahomes like special with his accuracy is he's accurate from, like you said, Rustin, any angle. And that comes from his baseball background too, of playing shortstop, from pitching too, because you, as a baseball player, you're kind of throwing from any kind of angle to try and get the ball there. And that accuracy plays into it, where you see his sidearm go far, and it gets in tight windows.
Didn't he play shortstop or third?
I believe it. Yeah, I believe it was shortstop, and he pitched too.
Yeah, shortstop and third base.
Yeah.
Like, and obviously he pitched, but those were, like you can see the angles, right? Like if you're a shortstop and you're going into the hole or even going up the middle, like he just kind of, that's the way he plays football.
He looks he looks like a shortstop out there. Like those highlight Derek Jeter plays where he's like throwing off balance, like stuff like that. Like he really.
Yeah, and I think he talks about that in the quarterback documentary too, about how his baseball background helped him so much.
Yeah.
And that's why he's like in training, it's like he's swinging a baseball bat and just like throwing from all different angles. And that's just what makes him different from any other quarterback, is he could find those tight windows pretty much from any angle.
How you started to mention Andy Reid and like how like a guy like Caleb Williams could use good coaching. How impactful has Andy Reid been to Patrick Mahomes' success in the NFL? Like, do you think Patrick Mahomes could have been as successful as he has been without a coach like Andy Reid?
Yeah, I mean, if he goes to the right system, obviously the guys would have been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But I do think that Andy Reid is, helps with 2 championships in 5 years. He's been in the AFC title game every year. He's won 2 MVPs. I mean, his numbers are on a historic pace. Like that's a lot Andy Reid in the offense. I mean, like Andy Reid's one of the best coaches in NFL history, but I think he is maybe arguably the best play designer in NFL history. And I don't know. I mean, maybe you can make arguments for other guys, but like he's definitely in that conversation. So it's like when you add in one of the best play designers in NFL history with one of the most talented quarterbacks of all time, I mean, like, I guess you've seen the results. And so like, I don't know. It's interesting to think about because like the Saints really wanted him. The Cardinals were interested. Bruce Arians really liked him.
Yeah.
So, there's some other teams that he could have gone to where I think he would have been really good. Like if he goes to the Bears, is he the same Patrick Mahomes? Like, I don't know. I mean, he obviously had a lot of talent around him too, but I think no matter what, he's, maybe the best quarterback in the NFL. But it's like, if you ever look at his advanced numbers, right? You look at the chart at quarterbacks, like Mahomes is like off the chart. It's like, maybe he's not literally off the chart if he goes to, another team. He's just slightly ahead of the pack.
That's a conversation I feel like we have a lot, not only here, but I feel like we hear it. Whereas, what if Deshaun Watson had gone to Kansas City? Like, what if you switched those roles, right, at that time? Let's go back 3 years.
But even Mitch, because he was in that same draft.
All right, forget Mitch. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson because Mitch isn't close to either of them.
Yeah.
But let's go back a few years before this whole thing happened with Deshaun Watson, and he was a top 3 to 5 quarterback. And there was that playoff game that was incredible. Patrick Mahomes' comeback against the Texans. But there was a conversation at that time. What if those roles had switched? What if Mahomes was on the Texans, Deshaun was in Kansas City? A lot of people thought the success would be the same in Kansas City. Deshaun would be as good. What do you think about that? You kind of answered that in saying that Mahomes would probably be the best quarterback wherever he went. But do you think flipping it, just Deshaun Watson in Kansas City, would he have that same type of success? Or another guy, like even if it's,
Mitch.
No, not Mitch, bro, but like somebody on that level.
Yeah, I mean, so let's use Deshaun Watson as the example. If he goes to the Chiefs, he puts up huge numbers in the offense. and he's a huge success. But I think the difference is that, like, so Patrick Mahomes in 5 seasons been to 5 AFC title games, 2 Super Bowl championships. He hasn't had a top 10 defense to this point in his career. Right. So it's like if you look at the dynasties in the NFL history, most of them, if they're not built with top defenses, it's certainly defenses that are, in the top 5 to 10 range, right?
Yeah, always.
And the Chiefs at best, since Patrick Mahomes has been there, have been right around that like 10 to 12 range. And most of the seasons they've been sort of very average. So like the fact that he's won 2 championships with on average, the 15th best defense in the NFL, I don't think another quarterback could have done that.
Yeah.
I don't think Deshaun Watson is winning 2 Super Bowls with the defenses that they've had in Kansas City, since Mahomes has been there. So I think that's like the big difference. Like Alex Smith, look at his numbers in 2017 when Mahomes was on the sidelines.
Yeah.
He was leading the league in passer rating for most of the year. He put up really big numbers. I mean, he had a lot of success. He won a lot of games with Andy Reid. Like he's kind of the perfect example because he's not a replacement level quarterback, but he's whatever slightly above replacement level, just like a solid NFL quarterback.
Kirk Cousins.
And he won a lot of games, but did they win in the playoffs? Like they didn't. They didn't win in the playoffs. So that's probably the best way to answer that question, I guess.
No, you answered it very well. Appreciate that.
Is Patrick Mahomes the GOAT? Do you think he's the GOAT already?
I mean, it's hard for me to say that. I think he's played quarterback at a higher level than anybody's ever played it.
How many rings do you think Mahomes needs to be solidified as the GOAT? Does he need that 7 that Brady has, or does he not need to hit the number?
So I think it's a little bit of like a sliding scale thing. I hate to make this comparison, but I actually think this will be a big sports talking point in like 5 to 10 years. It is very similar to the LeBron Jordan conversation.
Totally.
Because let's assume that Patrick Mahomes stays healthy and has a really long career. He's gonna he's gonna put most of like the passing numbers. Like he's gonna own all those records.
Yeah.
If as long as he stays healthy for another 10 to 12 years or however long he plays. But the question is even for the best players, I mean, postseason, the NFL playoffs, it's like coin flip games, like coin flip game after coin flip game. And so I could see a scenario where Patrick Mahomes ends up with 5 or 6 Super Bowls. And I don't know, would you guys be shocked if he ended up with 4? Like, would you be like, wow, what a, would 4 still be like, would that feel like, oh, wow, he didn't win that many titles?
It's insane. The standards we hold for him.
I mean, I think if he wins 4, like, you're right. It's very much like LeBron Jordan. It's like, I feel like there's always the debate of like who would impact who would win one-on-one, like LeBron, I think would win one-on-one. Yeah. He's a better specimen, better player or whatever in terms of just like physical ability, whereas Jordan was clutch and would actually go and win titles. So I feel like it's similar. We have yet to see if Mahomes is going to win all those titles. I think it's possible they could win the next 5, but you're right. It's a coin flip every day. A playoff game it's so anything could happen on Sunday,
We're so desensitized as fans because like it's so hard to make it not only to a Super Bowl, even like the AFC Championship.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And the Chiefs have done it so much 5 times. And you talk about, again, they don't even have a top 10 defense. Imagine if they had like a top 10 defense and, they'd win so many more championships. And
so many more. They've won 2 and 5. Let's be real.
I know, exactly.
Well.
That's so hard to do that, you know what, if he wins 4, still, that's a lot. 4 is a lot. Not many people even have like 2. So to say 1, exactly. So already like he's done a fantastic job. And I think like if, again, the Chiefs continue to just be on the same trajectory, like Andy Reid will be coaching the sidelines forever. Mahomes will still be there at 35, 40 years old. Like, yeah, of course.
Well, that leads us, I want to ask you then, what do you think Mahomes ends up with? I know that's like a wild question. It could be, there's a wide variety of possibilities.
Yeah. I mean, I think the over under you'd said is 4.5. Mm-hmm. And I think I would take the over. I think he'll end up with 5. Like 5 would be the number I would probably settle on if I was like trying to find the most likely outcome. Like, I think there's scenarios where he gets to 6 or 7, but that's a lot of stuff that's probably not on him too, right? So that's a lot on the front office and how they draft over the next 5 years and all these sort of questions. But like, I think, I think I don't know what the probability or odds would be, but I think it's very likely they win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
Like last year was the kind of the one where they probably got away with winning one where they weren't the best team. But I think they probably, if everybody stays healthy, they are the best team this year. And so if he has 3 in 6 years starting, I think he can get to 5, certainly. But yeah, I don't know. It's very thin margins too. So he could also end up with, 3, like he could go Aaron Rodgers the next 10 years, and have a lot of bad luck or whatever. But yeah, I think 5 is the number for me.
The Chiefs are plus 600 according to Caesars to win the Super Bowl. They're the favorite. Yeah. According to Caesars, they're plus 600 this year to win the Super Bowl, which is the favorite. Yeah. Next is the Eagles at plus 750. So like,
sense. Yeah, it's the 2 Super Bowl teams. It makes sense.
Exactly.
Are you ever? So we talk about like the front office and like bringing guys in. Are you ever worried? Like last year was pretty much the first time that Mahomes didn't have like a wide receiver, clear number 1 wide receiver. Like there was Travis Kelce, but like the wide receiver room was a little shaky. Are you ever worried that like this going into this year that there's no true like star wide receiver like Tyreek Hill, or is Patrick Mahomes just so good that you don't have to worry about that because he's going to elevate those players even more?
Yeah, I'm not really that worried about the wide receivers, in part because you mentioned it, but like they still have Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
I think
for how much longer,
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I think when Travis Kelce leaves, and I think he might be, a top 3 or 4 underrated player in the NFL. Like everybody knows how good he is, but I'm not sure that if you watch him on a week-to-week basis, I think he was even when they had Tyreek Hill, it was like Kelce was the true number one guy. Yeah. So like that's the big question. How do they replace Travis Kelce? Hopefully for the Chiefs fans, that won't be a question for another 2 to 3 years, but he's also getting up there. So, but from a wide receiver's perspective, I think they have enough pieces like Richie James, Kadarius Toney, like they've got enough just like little pieces here and there to make it work at the receiver level. And I think they're better when they can spread it out. And we saw that last year too. So as long as they have Travis Kelce, I think they're good to go in the passing game.
Yeah, all right, last question, and then we'll let you go. What are your predictions for the Chiefs this year, across the board?
Well, I think I would predict that they finish 14-3, which is probably good enough for the 1 seed. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see what the Eagles do, but like I feel very strongly that the Chiefs and Eagles will be playing in the Super Bowl again.
I agree.
In part because I think the Eagles have an easier path, right? So like, just an easier path in the NFC. I don't know. The 49ers, I guess maybe are the biggest threat to them, but like, you like the quarterback, like you're going to take the better quarterback. So like, I think the Eagles are coming out of the NFC again. And I think the Chiefs are very likely to, and I actually think there's a scenario. This feels like a little homerish. I get it. But like, like I 15-2, it is like, I think the Chiefs might put like just their defense that's younger. If it stays healthy, like they could actually have a pretty solid defense, maybe not a top 5 defense, but like they could be hanging out there like on the fringe of the top 10. And they're younger and a little bit more athletic on the defensive side. So like, I think 15-2 is like certainly in play for them as well.
Well, now I have to ask this though: how big of a threat are the Bengals? And because you covered so much around Patrick Mahomes and like the family and the environment or whatever, there's a lot of conversation about like Joe Burrow, and I think a lot of that, like Mahomes isn't even worried about that, right? But Burrowhead was a thing, and they dismissed that real quick. The whole mayor thing with Cincinnati last year. Does Patrick?
Do we know if that bothers Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, does that like bother Patrick Mahomes? Does Joe Burrow or the Bengals, do they have real estate in the minds of the Kansas City Chiefs, including Patrick Mahomes?
Or the fans even?
Yeah, I think it does. He wanted to play them in the postseason last year. He's been on the record as saying that.
Yeah, and quarterback.
And he's the kind of quarterback who thinks about legacy, and he knows all this stuff. So he hadn't beaten Joe Burrow, he hadn't beaten the Bengals, so like I think he really cares about that stuff, and I think those are the quarterbacks he measures himself against. And I actually, you didn't mention them, but like I think the Bills are still a threat.
Sure.
They might not be as loaded as they were, but like if I was ranking the 3 best teams in the NFL, and like the Eagles are right there, but like I might just pick Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
So like I think Mahomes does care. He thinks about Joe Burrow and Josh Allen as being like, these are the guys that are the biggest threat to take the belt from me, and like I'm gonna prove every day that I'm better than they are.
Who's the second best quarterback in the NFL?
Good question.
I think it's Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
But I think there's a bigger gap between Mahomes and Burrow than there is between Burrow, Allen, and Jalen Hurts, or whoever. Maybe Aaron Rodgers is still fourth. We'll see. I don't want to discount him, but like I think there's a bigger gap between 1 and 2 than there is between like 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, totally.
Whoever you pick.
We all agree for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Rustin, this was a great time. This was super interesting, and I'm very excited to check out your book. So if you're listening at home, definitely be sure to check out Kingdom Quarterback, book on Patrick Mahomes and the history of Kansas City. Rustin, thank you so much, man, for coming on. This was a great time.
Anything else you want to
No,
promote?
thanks. It was fun. It was fun.
Anything
What's
else,
that, Felipe?
Anything else you want to promote?
No.
Socials or anything like that?
The book is out tomorrow. Yeah. Check out, sports coverage at The Athletic if you're ever into that kind of thing. So yeah, thanks for having me. This has been really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, this will come out, by the way, I know you mentioned it earlier, but yeah, it's coming out today,
afternoon.
Monday. So go get it tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Buy the book.
All right, Rustin, thank you so much, man. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Rustin.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
See you, Rustin.
Yo, Rustin Dodd, what a legend. Honestly, sick that he wrote this book.
No, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I want to, in my older age, like my late 30s, write a niche book about something.
On Zach
I don't-
Wilson?
Maybe, honestly.
Yeah.
Dude, the Zach Wilson
Yes.
story arc is teeing up to be really awesome.
It
It's
actually-
right
it
there.
is.
It's right
It's
there.
right
for the
there.
taking.
Rodgers-
He said that he wants to, in 5 years,
He said in a couple. He said it was like a
couple
few years.
Yeah.
He's
hand
like,
the keys back to
give
Zach
it-
Wilson.
Yep, exactly. Keys
If
to the
he's even
city.
on the Jets.
Yeah,
Yeah, he might get
exactly.
cut.
But
I don't know about that.
No, he won't get cut.
I can see his contract running out and going somewhere else.
Yeah, but exactly, writing a book like that, and especially he's from Kansas City, must be so cool. Talking to the legends, these are guys that he watched growing up and admired. So I think that's really awesome.
I don't even read. I'm gonna read.
Yeah, I don't read.
I'm gonna
I haven't read a
that
book this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
same.
I love biographies on play. Like when I was a kid, I used to love biographies
I'm
on
sure,
players.
yeah.
I haven't read them in a while.
All right,
but-
what was one thing that he said that you thought was the most interesting or the coolest thing?
The accuracy, because talking about the baseball side of things and his accuracy, not just in the pocket, being injured on that ankle, but the sidearm, any angle you find, Patrick Mahomes will find the window.
I gotta
And
find
that's so
Patrick Mahomes
awesome.
baseball highlights. I'm sure
Right.
they,
High
I'm
school?
sure
Oh,
they
yeah,
exist.
they're there.
Facts.
High
Well,
school baseball.
But it makes sense because his dad was a pro baseball player. but
Yeah,
for
shout
our
out the
New
Mets.
York Mets.
Shout out the Mets.
But that just what shows. I feel like every quarterback should play baseball at some point in their life because
I
it
feel like
just
a lot of them do.
it just
A lot of them
changes
do.
how you see throwing and the accuracy when you're throwing under duress. As a shortstop, you get the ball and you got to throw quick.
Every guy in baseball,
Mm-hmm.
I mean in MLB at least, when you're at the top level,
Yeah.
are ridiculously accurate throws.
Yes.
You have to be able to
need to
throw
be.
this little tiny
Yeah.
thing perfectly straight, especially infielders, because you're throwing just to first base every time.
Really
You
quick.
gotta
You
just
can't even
gun
think
it
about
100 miles an hour straight to first base. That's why a guy like Patrick Mahomes was successful as a quarterback. Because you're right.
It's
he's
ball.
got
It's
that.
ball right to you, and then out the glove, and you have to find the other glove really tiny. And that's what the
So
NFL.
quick.
NFL is all about inches, and it's all about these tiny windows that you have to find your receiver because there's a defender or two strapped all over you. You got to find where their hands are going to be at any angle.
Football
Mahomes does it.
kind of is it's kind of a conglomeration of lots of different sports skills. So
You can say that.
receiver is almost like soccer players,
Yeah.
quick cuts, got to run really fucking fast. Quarterback is almost like a shortstop or a third baseman.
Point guard.
Yeah, point guard too.
Point
yeah.
guard, exactly. Right, that's the knowledge of the point guard.
Linebacker, you
Linebacker's
surprised
like
a lot
a
of basketball,
def-
man.
Yeah.
because a lot of
Yeah, a lot of basketball,
a lot
of
of
course.
shuffling and stuff like that. Tight end, and a lot of basketball.
True.
My biggest takeaway was
Texas,
the economic impact that he had in Kansas
yeah,
City. And, like even the comparison with LeBron, like him making that comparison and talking about how Cleveland, the city was kind of revitalized from, like, you look at it and it's a historical point in the city's history when that athlete came there and just kind of changed the trajectory of the city economically. That's fucking insane to even think about. A lot of people try to dismiss sports as like, oh, it's like not that important, stuff like that. Well, that like shows you it's kind of insane.
Yeah.
An athlete, what they can bring to the city.
Lucrative.
So LeBron and now Patrick Mahomes,
Taylor
like that's
Swift.
crazy.
Taylor Swift.
Taylor
Kansas-
Swift,
Kansas-
great athlete.
Taylor Swift's been boosting the economy.
Oh yeah, for every
like
place.
nationwide.
Yeah, for the workers.
Did you not know that?
Oh, I'm well,
Yeah,
it's
because the
bad.
stadium tour.
That
It's
doesn't have anything to
insane.
do with the city, though.
I'm just saying.
I did want to.
It's
wanted,
just crazy.
I wanted.
It's
to-
something that doesn't
yeah.
matter, right? Like fucking entertainment, like it doesn't.
It
but,
doesn't.
But it does. It makes an impact.
Yeah,
Like,
I wanted to
brings
ask
people
about,
together
like,
and makes money.
I wanted to ask about like the difference of like the vibe of between the Chiefs and the Royals. Like Kansas City Royals won the World Series in 2015.
Yeah.
Our Mets. But then the Chiefs obviously won the Super Bowl. Obviously, like, but I knew, like, as the conversation went on, I obviously know the answer. Like, everyone cares more about the Chiefs, and I feel like the economic impact of Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs is so much higher and so much greater than the Kansas City Royals
As a whole organization.
As a whole organization, but even when they won the World Series, like, I think it just still, like, Kansas City is just popping more when the Chiefs were good versus when the Royals were good.
There's two things with that. First one is football is the biggest sport in the world.
Yes.
In America.
In America.
Yes.
It's by a lot.
is.
Like by so much.
100%.
And the second thing is the Royals had no one. They had no superstars.
They didn't. They
Like
didn't have
I
any big
don't. I don't know who was even on that roster.
Lorenzo
you know what
Cain, I think, is the only guy that
Not a
I know off the top
superstar.
of my- But yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? It's not like a freaking.
I'm a big Lorenzo Cain fan.
No, but I'm saying it's not like even like a. It's not like a Mike Trout, right?
Right.
Who's like everybody.
guy-
You don't have to be a
but-
baseball fan to know who Mike Trout
But
is,
even
you know?
then,
Or
you-
Shohei Ohtani. You know, like
you look at the other sports, and like LeBron is the perfect comparison for the economic impact. There's no other player that goes to a city and the economy goes up. Like Mike Trout didn't do that. He's the biggest player in baseball. Even Shohei Ohtani,
But
biggest player in
baseball,
baseball.
it's different.
But even in
Something about baseball's
basketball though,
different.
like Kevin Durant bounces around, the economy's not going up. Like these Luka Doncic, your Dallas Mavericks, like the
Well,
economy's not going
Yeah,
up.
guys,
there's a
but, like,
different
there's-
level of
there's-
hype. There's a different level of hype with.
Also,
LeBron.
like you come to
Yeah.
Dallas, it's like what he was saying about New York. New York sports could end, and it wouldn't fucking change a thing because
The
city
life
would-
goes on.
yeah.
Yeah.
But in Kansas City,
It's about the
and
metropolis.
Dallas is about the Cowboys. The Mavs could be the best team in the world. Not going to matter. Not going to change one
Sure.
thing because the
Yeah.
Cowboys are going to be the most important
sure.
team, even if they're 0-16 or 0-17.
Absolutely.
So it was like, yeah, again, like we talk about the perfect storm all the time, but that's another example of like Kansas City. They need the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yes.
putting a big fish in a small pond and making that
Absolutely.
pond fucking ocean.
And Cleveland was like that. Cleveland had never won. And
they're a tiny
Cleveland had
city.
nothing.
They're a tiny city. They had no success
I
ever.
think just the Browns.
Same thing, by the way. Michael Jordan didn't do that for Chicago because Chicago's a massive
Sure.
city, right? Like the Bulls could never have existed,
Yeah.
and that wouldn't have impacted, like you said,
Yeah,
it would not have
that-
impacted the success of the economy of the city. You know?
yeah.
Before like Mahomes got there, like even like still you could still consider Kansas City as a small market team.
Yeah.
Still-
But
still is.
they still are.
Still
but
is,
like,
yeah.
But it's because Patrick Mahomes is there, they're getting on national television.
So much
constantly
publicity,
because
yeah.
it's Patrick Mahomes. But if there was no Patrick Mahomes, they're that small market team that no one really thinks about, that none of the players go to because it is the small city, the small team.
I'm sure
Well,
to an extent Tom Brady impacted a little bit, but Boston's not as big as Chicago, New York.
No.
You know, like
it's still a big city.
It's still a major city.
Yeah,
So
it
many
is.
major sports and like
It
a
is.
big, massive history.
It's also just like the hype of the player and like getting there, and like it's the perfect storm of the team being not great and the type of player this player is and like what they did immediately. Like Patrick Mahomes' rookie year, again, he sat behind Alex Smith, did his thing there, and then as soon as he started, MVP, 50 touchdowns.
Also, the quarterback for your franchise. Like,
yeah,
Yes.
exactly. He's the face.
He's the face. He's the face of the franchise.
So like just being a quarterback, you're gonna represent any football being the biggest team or the biggest sport,
Yeah.
and then the quarterback for your football team, he's gonna represent your city.
What was your biggest takeaway?
I honestly was that. I was going to say that. That is insane
Sick.
to me, the LeBron comparison. I mean, like, also just what's fun with that. Like, it's going – I love the LeBron-Jordan debate. I think it's exciting, and, like, there's no way to quantify it, really. Like, there's not really any –
Yeah, it's
as
hard.
it is right now, it's like you could have your opinion, and you're not going to get your mind changed necessarily.
Yeah.
I think it's going to end up being the same thing. I'm excited for it to be similar with, like, the Mahomes-Brady thing. Yeah. At first, we thought, like, Brady won't ever pass Montana, right? And then he obviously got those Super Bowls, and now no one's going to touch him.
Nah, we thought we did think he would pass Montana.
I'm
he got
just
3
saying,
immediately.
But fine. Our parents never thought that anybody would pass Montana. Yeah. And I don't necessarily think Mahomes is going to pass Brady. Obviously, we watched Brady for our whole lives. Like, but I do think it's going to be fun to, like, let's say Mahomes does win only 4 Super Bowls. He's still the most talented player to ever step on the football field. Yeah. So we're going to be having this debate of who's the GOAT, Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady.
This might be like a hot take, but like right now it's a debate. In the next 10 years it's going to be a debate. But by the end of Mahomes' career, I think it's going to be a definite. Everyone's going to be like Patrick Mahomes.
I think so too.
Because you just look at like the talent. Like Mahomes, if he stays who he is now and he stays consistent till like Brady played till he's 45, and that's what a lot of people say about Brady is
he's not gonna play
he
till
just
45.
played for so long and he had this long career, and that's why he hit those numbers. If Mahomes has a really long career, like I think he could break those.
How many
numbers.
MVPs did Brady
He can break it way sooner.
Yeah.
How many MVPs did Brady have?
3 or 4. Might be 3.
I mean, Brady was nuts. Like he was clutch, but Mahomes is just so much more talented.
I don't think the Jordan LeBron comparison is a great one because
it sucks. I hate it. I hate talking about it.
No, but in terms of like Mahomes and Brady, because Mahomes is so much more talented than Brady, in every way. So and also there's so many different nuances that I just think make it a bad comparison. Like Jordan dominated.
Yeah, LeBron's not more talented, but I would say he's the better player. Like
the better all around, but then also like as a basketball player, you're doing more. Quarterback just does quarterback things. Totally. So it's just like a really tough comparison. But
it is.
Brady has 3 MVPs.
3.
And 2 Offensive Player of the Years. Mahomes has 2 MVPs and 1 Offensive Player of the Year. Brady.
So he's 1 MVP away, exactly.
Yeah,
and he's only played 5 years.
Brady 3-time first-team All-Pro. Mahomes 2-time first-team All-Pro. So
he's gonna crush him.
He's
gonna crush him.
Like the pace he's on is like he's already gonna pass him.
It goes back to what I've like mentioned before though. With like when Brady was at his peak, Peyton Manning, there was arguments. Peyton might be better.
Yeah, exactly.
We haven't had that with Mahomes, especially right now. Like, we don't
like
have
you
that.
said, like Rustin said, like there's such a gap between
huge gap.
Mahomes. And
there might not be in the future. Who knows? Maybe Caleb Williams is just going to be the fucking dude, and then there's going to be a conversation.
Trevor Lawrence.
Or Trevor.
You know, like
or Burrow could take another step.
Zach Wilson.
Josh Allen could take another step. Zach Wilson
Daniel
for
Jones.
sure.
I'm telling you, the storyline is teed up for you.
DJ got paid, so
DJ, that's true.
It's fun. It's
all right,
fun
let's
conversation.
talk a little bit. Just we got a few
this
minutes
left.
left.
This is the Mahomes episode.
Yeah,
bro.
facts. Shout out the GOAT. Let's talk a little bit about preseason. Actually, football has been real football has been played in the last 2 weeks. What's your favorite takeaway from preseason so far?
Deuce Vaughn, baby.
I love Deuce
He's
Vaughn.
lightning in a fucking bottle.
I love Deuce Vaughn.
You could fit him in a bottle.
You can.
You could.
I could hold him in my hand. I think, like on his butt. Just
shit, bro.
And Tony Pollard's like kind of like hurt, right? Is he like low key hurt, or is it like not?
Paul's
like,
not hurt. Paul's not hurt. He was just coming. He's coming back from the ankle or whatever it was that happened in the Niners game. But he's healthy. He's fully healthy. He's gonna be a dog. But Deuce Vaughn.
Does he actually look really good?
Yeah, he looks phenomenal. Like the runs he's breaking, like. He's just so much more athletic than anybody on the defense. Like, and he's quick. And yes, there is something to him being smaller and like hiding behind the offensive line and bursting through. But when he bursts through, and he is one-on-one with the linebacker, they're not tackling him. Like they can't get him. He's just too quick. Think Darren Sproles. The one thing people don't know about Darren Sproles is that when you look at the all-time like all-purpose yards, like leaders in all-purpose yards, you have Jerry Rice 1, like guys like that, right? Like T.O. Darren Sproles is 4, bro.
Really?
Yeah, like he's one of the most impactful. People are going to remember him for being short. Realistically, he's one of the most impactful players to ever step foot on a football field.
Dude, I bet Deuce Vaughn's
he's that talented.
I bet Deuce Vaughn's idol is Darren Sproles.
I'm sure.
Because he just hides behind the line, and then by the time you see him, he's gone.
So he looks great. The Cowboys are going to use him as a gadget player, obviously. He's not an every down back. He's going to get, hopefully, 10 touches might be a lot for him in a game, but those 10 touches are going to be incredibly impactful. So, Boston Scott.
Yeah. But
remember Danny Woodhead? Guys like that, man.
But
they have impact.
But the Eagles' running back room is so full. I don't know. But like Deuce Vaughn will actually get that opportunity because Tony Pollard had it.
I'm just saying Boston Scott killed the Giants.
Yeah.
I'm saying in that type of like role, but like in a 17-game season.
I love Danny Woodhead. My
Biggest
takeaway, the Jets Super Bowl. I don't know. It's just like I'm
They
watching.
lost
Like,
both their playoffs.
They
Jets
lost
Super
preseason
Bowl.
game.
How is that a takeaway?
I love this Jets team. I haven't been this excited for a Jets team in a long time because of. I think it's Hard
Cold
Knocks.
take.
I think it's just because of Hard Knocks.
Yeah, we're all excited.
But it's even better from when
Maybe not
Rex
much.
Ryan was on
Slippery
Hard
slope,
Knocks.
my friend.
I would know.
Rodgers
slope.
is having so much fun.
Yeah,
in
that's
New
cool.
York.
I like seeing that.
When he's a veteran guy like this old guy coming in, you have Zach Wilson.
Oh, yeah.
Zach Wilson's taking it very well. Rodgers is taking it very well, really
yeah.
mentoring him. Like the team around him, it just looks so good. And I'm so excited for the New York fucking
Hard Knocks
Jets.
is such a slippery slope. I've been watching it with my Jet fan
It's so
friends.
good, bro.
And
This season is
my
incredible.
my buddy Silbo, big Jets
Yeah,
fan,
yeah.
like more emotionally invested than anyone I know. He gets furious when they just fucking lose a game and you
That's
can't talk to
awful.
him for the next day.
That's awful.
But he was just like and my other Jet fan friends were saying that like. I mean, this is all bad.
No,
Hard Knocks
no.
and the hype around the Jets
No.
is bad
No, I love
because
it.
they're all. It's just
We just signed
recipe
Dalvin-
for
we just signed
downfall.
Dalvin Cook too. Yeah, it is a recipe for
Oh, he
downfall. But
hates-
like
It's great
the hype,
for the NFL,
The
bro.
hype is,
It is.
it's there. It's awesome for the NFL. After the first episode of Hard Knocks I watched, it was like my fiance falls asleep. We're watching our shows. She falls asleep. She doesn't care to watch Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
So I watch it late by myself.
Yeah.
Damn, bro.
After the first
My girlfriend
episode,
loves Hard Knocks.
first episode,
There's levels to this shit.
Yeah.
first episode. After the first episode, I bet Jets Super Bowl. I bet Aaron Rodgers MVP. Garrett Wilson Offensive Player of the Year.
so dumb.
Robert Saleh Coach of the Year. Then hold on, it gets better. After the second episode,
sipping on the
because
Kool-Aid,
I don't know
bro.
if- I don't know if
Flushed
you-
your credit card down the
Oh, yeah,
toilet.
yeah.
Chugging the Kool-Aid, bro. That shit is like
Okay,
all over his
but then-
eyes and shit.
But then, but I always do this every year for the Super Bowl. Like, I bet my team like $5 or $10 to
Sure.
win whatever
What'd you
championship.
bet this time?
Like,
$1 million?
no, it was $10, like 10 or 20
He
bucks.
took the engagement
But-
ring back. He sold that shit. Put it on the Jets.
But after the second episode, I don't know if you've watched, you know that the mentalist guy,
that shit was insane. That shit was
That was
cool.
with
nuts.
the Jets beating the 49ers in the Super Bowl. I bet the Jets to beat the 49ers in
With
the
the
Super
score,
Bowl.
too?
No, you can't do the score.
Oh, it was like
Scores. That's too
31-21 or
crazy.
some
Yeah,
shit.
But Jets to beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl and Jets versus 49ers in the Super Bowl.
Wow.
I mean, those two bets. I'm locked in. I'm
guarantee you-
afraid what's going to happen in episode 3. I'm afraid. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm going to bet. I don't know what.
Mentalist is going to come back and say the
and
Jets are not
also-
making the Super
also,
Bowl.
like Rodgers, like throwing over 28.5 touchdowns.
Oh, that's
this
a good
season.
bet.
Like, and it's like
That
it was
feels
a
good.
plus money. It was
Over
like
how much?
28.5?
Like
30
the
touchdowns.
receivers that they
Yeah,
have,
probably.
like Garrett Wilson's gonna have like 10.
Yeah, he's gonna have a great year.
Alan Lazard's
Garrett
gonna
Wilson will
have a
have
very
like
good year.
14. I feel like, bro.
Randall Cobb might have 8. Like low key.
I don't know
like,
about that one.
He just
Lazard,
he loves.
Maybe 10
No,
years ago.
Lazard will have 8. Lazard will
Lazard
have
will
at least
have
8.
eight.
But
Lazard
like,
will have like
Randall
6.
Cobb's 32, and him and Rodgers love each
Exactly.
other.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just my biggest takeaway though for the Jets though
You guys should
is
sign Jordy Nelson.
honestly that'd be
Donald
kinda
Driver.
Lit. That'd be kind of lit. But like
Jermichael Finley, maybe.
major takeaway for the Jets is the offensive line. That's the one big question. Is
Yeah, y'all.
that's
that
gonna
needs to
drive
be
the
fixed
Jets
ASAP, bro.
Like they just need there's the
Honestly,
line
make a
is the
trade.
big
Aaron
question.
Rodgers for an
Yeah.
offensive lineman.
The other thing
Yeah,
about
honestly,
the Jets, bro,
yeah.
that you saw that scene in that second episode where Saleh was like yelling at the team, like we got to get our shit together,
yeah, yeah.
basically. My takeaway from that is that Saleh knows
I love him.
that like this season is make or break for him.
Oh,
Like
yeah,
he
for
needs
sure.
to he's got all the pieces now. He's got to go put
You
it together and make the playoffs and win a playoff
You-
game at least. And then he'll hold on to his job. I think if they don't make the playoffs, he's gonna get fired.
Jets went 7-10 last year.
No.
Yeah.
Jets went 7-10.
You have all these
that
pieces,
was
and you're
sarcasm.
suspected to be this excellent coach.
It wasn't
Go
sarcasm,
fucking
I
cook.
promise.
You have the pieces. Go fucking
Nah, they
cook.
don't have an
You
offensive
all
line
the-
though.
Fucking coach your offensive
No,
line.
can't do
I
that.
100% agree because like the Jets went 7-10 last year with like
You're right, if they
the
missed the
team was
playoffs.
like
If
If
kind
they
of
miss the
a
playoffs
mess.
with this team,
No, but the division's
Yeah.
so good. So what if they win 9 games and miss the playoffs? They're still above 500.
Yeah, no.
no.
I
Nine
think
games, they're expected to
if
win
they,
12
If they miss, listen,
and
they're
make
not.
the
They're
playoffs.
over
No,
under
they're-
by like 9.5.
yeah, they're over
Whatever.
at 8 or 9.
So
and a half.
10.
But if they do miss the playoff, it's going to be a disaster because you have Aaron Rodgers that came in, the
I agree.
four-time
You gotta
MVP.
make the playoffs.
You just signed Dalvin Cook. You have a bunch of young guys that are elite. The defense is supposed to be the best
Yeah.
it's been since the 2010-11 team with like Sanchez with the back-to-back AFC championships. Like it's the perfect storm. You're right, Matan. Like expectations are at its highest, and that's when you get let down the most.
Yeah.
But dude,
Keep him low.
Hard Knocks is so good. It's got me wanting. If the Jets didn't have an ugly ass uniform, I'll get a jersey, bro. Like I've been legit. I've been watching.
they're
I'm
bringing
so
back-
excited.
Get the white
I like
one, get
the
the white
Jets,
one.
bro.
They're bringing back the throwbacks.
Get the white
one.
one.
White one's actually not
The white
bad.
one's
I don't
not
like the
bad.
stripes. The stripes on there, like I don't
The white
like
one
them.
I like actually.
Yeah,
Shit.
my biggest takeaway from the preseason with the Giants is that Darren Waller is Daniel Jones' favorite target already,
Yeah, he should be.
and
He's on my
as he
dynasty
should
team.
be. And I'm very excited to draft Darren Waller in fantasy.
That's my dynasty tight end. Yeah, you could wait for him.
I mean,
too.
if I don't get obviously Kelsey, fucking Kittle, or,
No, I mean,
or
I would've-
Andrews.
Jake
I would-
Ferguson.
personally, I
Luke
would
Schoonmaker.
The
I
fourth
would've-
best tight end in the NFL is on the New York Giants, and he's about to prove that this year.
Honestly, you could argue second best.
I would avoid
Agreed.
Kittle. I would avoid Kittle because
I'm not
there's
touching
just
Kittle.
too many people on that offense. But
I'm going for Waller, bro. I'm going for Waller. He's about to have
falling.
a
You
fucking
could wait,
great
You
year.
could wait for Waller.
I'm also
late.
How
stashing-
far is he falling for everybody
He's
that plays
probably
fantasy?
like 7th or 8th in
No,
like 12
he's
man,
not.
like 7th round.
Who, Waller?
Oh, 7th, 8th
Let me
round.
see. Let's.
I'm also
fucking rip a
stashing
random-
DJ. I'm taking DJ.
Let me rip a random.
I'm not tripping about DJ.
Nah, if we're being right,
Yeah.
if we're being real, I don't usually draft too many Giants because
But Waller's a bucket though. I think I realistically think he's the second best tight end in the league. He's better than Kittle. He's a way better receiver.
Anyway, my point is I'm super excited to see what Darren Waller can
He's gonna
do.
be great, bro.
And he's
That's
already DJ's favorite.
That's what he needed.
Favorite receiver.
That's what he fucking needed.
Which is exactly what we
Dude,
needed.
fuck yeah, bro. Darren
Jalen
Waller.
Hyatt, bro.
Yeah, he sucks. but Darren Waller's good.
No,
Hyatt's
no.
ass.
Jalen Hyatt's good.
He's ass.
Jalen
Rookie of the
Hyatt's
year.
good.
Rookie of the
The
year.
other rookie is going to be interesting to see. The kid from Tennessee.
That's what he just said.
Jalen Hyatt.
Jalen Hyatt. Is that the? No,
Yeah.
there's a second. Okay, then there's another.
There is another guy. We have
He's very quick, but like in
Banks.
college.
Giants?
Oh no, not a
Yeah,
receiver
yeah.
though. We have a corner, Banks.
No, not a corner. I was thinking of a
Who's
receiver.
supposed to be
like a
really
mid-round
good.
receiver. But
Deontay
anyway,
Banks.
Deontay Banks, yeah.
Giants. Listen. No, the NFC East hasn't had a repeat winner since. Like,
Yeah, but it's not gonna be the
03.
Giants. It's gonna be the Cowboys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I honestly
But
think
the
Cowboys.
Giants are going to be decent, I think. I mean, Darren Waller, dude, night and day. Like, your offense is
Yeah.
going to be so much better because you have not only Saquon, but you have a guy that you can rely on in the receiving game. That's
Yeah.
going to be insane. He's a receiver playing tight
Also,
end.
Shep is healthy, so hopefully he can be back
Shout
to
out Texas, bro. Real
Sterling
talk,
Shepard.
man.
Yeah, a legend. Hopefully he can be like what his peak was, which was like
Hey,
a
football,
decent
man.
second
Yeah,
receiver.
football. Dude,
We're-
this Thursday, we're 2 weeks away. 2 weeks away.
I think college football's very soon too. I think college football's this week or next week.
Yeah, college
It
football always
is, it
starts
is.
a week before.
Oh
All right, well, we got to
God.
wrap up. Just so you know, because we only have 2 weeks away, next week we're going to be dark from the podcast. We're going to have
Facts.
another episode coming out on Friday this
Yes,
week.
the Friday
we're not
this
going to have a Wednesday episode, but we're going to have another one on
sorry.
Friday.
Yes.
We just, a couple of the guys on vacation next
Yep.
week. Felipe and I are taking vacation as
Yep.
well, so we
right.
got to get that little last calm before the storm.
That's right.
So get ready for football season.
Get ready,
I'm
man.
fucking stoked. We're going to have unreal content for you guys.
Hell yeah.
So get excited. But thanks for listening to the Caps Off podcast.
Yeah, yo, please remember to leave us a review and a rating if you're listening, especially during this dark week we have next week. You guys are going to have a lot of time because you're not going to be listening. So take that time and leave a review. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, also, we need to get to 20K subscribers on YouTube,
YouTube.
before the NFL season. That's in 2 weeks. So send every video to your friends. Like, literally copy paste that link. Send it
Yeah.
to every single one of your friends right now. I know you have a group chat with your friends where you're talking about football. So send this in
We're
that
trying
group
to
chat.
pop off by football, like throughout football season, and it's with y'all.
Yeah,
We've grown
we
a
need your
lot,
help.
actually,
We
man.
need your help.
So you guys are huge
The
for
off
us. and
season has been unreal.
Insane. It's been
Unreal
incredible.
off season. We've had a ton of fun, and you guys are a huge reason for that. So please, be a part of this. We're gonna pop
Yes.
off this season.
And let us know, like, always contribute. Let us know what you guys want to listen to, what we want us to talk about, and we will do that. So,
Damn right.
yeah, let's
All
wrap
right.
up.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. Peace.
See ya.
Do you think Patrick Mahomes is the GOAT? Also, go check out Rustin Dodd's book, Kingdom Quarterback, now. Go get it. You can order it online, I'm sure. So go check it out. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and send us to your friends.